Here. You want to charge it again?
So continuing with the environment and sustainability track, I am delighted to introduce you to our next moderator, James Purvis. James is head of human resources at CERN since 2016 and is responsible for leading the HR strategy and operations for the organization and its approximately 18,000 members of personnel. James has 25 years of management experience at CERN, having worked 15 years in the fields of IT and engineering, followed by 15 years in HR. CERN's core business is world-class particle physics, and achieving that challenges the boundaries from engineering through to HR. James is proud to be part in that challenge. He was born in the UK, brought up in Mallorca, and studied computer science at Brunel University. Outside of work, James loves mountain biking, snowboarding, and kite surfing.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I hope all of you are enjoying this fascinating event and exploring the 3D world. So it's my pleasure and the theme this afternoon to introduce you to Emilio Asensi. We're taking you on a voyage here where Emilio started in Spain. He graduated from the Polytechnical University of Valencia. He came to CERN as a fellow engineer in the controls and electricity section within the Cryogenics group from 2013 to 2016 as a fellow. And subsequent to that, he moved to ESS in Sweden as a project engineer, continuing in the domain of cryogenics. But as most things in life, there are always interesting things that inspire us. And he said something changed in 2018. He went on a master's in leadership for sustainability that he literally says blew his mind. And that led him to a new interest in how can we help people for the good of the planet and how can we use technology. As a result of that, he created a startup called Vaquita Technologies. And, well, I could tell you more, but actually I think the best person to give you more information about that, about Emilio's journey and about the startup and where it is now and what the purpose is Emilio himself. So with that, I welcome Emilio Asensi to join us in the collisions today with his presentation. Welcome, Emilio.
And thank you, everyone, for being here together with me today. Well, when I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking, who is the audience here in this CERN alumni event? And well, it's CERN alumni, of course. I was thinking that many people are here in the audience, maybe just out of CERN. Maybe some others are about to finish their stay at CERN. And maybe some others are thinking about changing their career. So my intention with my presentation is to share my experience and also what led to the decisions I took, hopefully help them to make their own decisions. And well, if the decisions bring them to help the people, help the planet, bring a more sustainable society, that's for the better. As James mentioned, I was at CERN from 2013 to 2016. As a fresh graduate, actually, I had some experience at the university, but I was just out of my degree. That was a very good time. I mean, I had no experience with particle physics or cryogenics. It was very interesting to starting to be part of CERN. But I wanted to emphasize the community. The community at CERN, it made a memorable stay. You know, as the ski club or all the groups and events that happen over there. It's not something to be underestimated. It's very important to nurture these hard skills. Like myself, I learned a lot, particle physics, cryogenics, PLC programming. That was my main task over there. but also to be part of a community and to socialize with other people, having a more international community, multidisciplinary community. That's something that I give a lot of value. Of course, to have a staff position at CERN after so little years of experience was not possible for me at the time. So I was looking for opportunities outside CERN. The European Exploration Source was starting to be a reality in Sweden, and I was happy to join them in 2016, just after a couple of months after I left CERN. It was a good decision at the time. I didn't want to waste my time I spent at CERN. All this experience in this very big organization, very important one. So I would say I wanted to profit from that experience and then continue my journey in cryogenics and control systems. So I joined as a project engineer for the Cryomodules Test Stands, where there was nothing at the time, not even the building. So we had to build everything from scratch. Even if I was still in the technical field, I also had the opportunity to have a more conceptual work over there. I had to work a lot with documentation, the work packages, the in-kind contributions, and well, some of you are PhD students or have been PhD students, not me, but many of you, and you have been in conference and papers and working papers, but I didn't. So that was also new for me. Then in career development, I was getting this bigger picture, right? Not only technical work, but also conceptual work. So when I started to think about career development as an engineer, I had two possibilities. One was to be very focused on the technical field, become an expert, or as many others before me, jump into project management. So while I was having fun in this conceptual work, mixing with the technical, didn't want to specialize. So I started to take some directions into project management. Also because ESS was a very fresh organization, there were some opportunities over there to maybe lead a team, maybe lead a project. So what we do when we want to excel in our work, we try to educate ourselves. So I was looking around, I wanted to get formal education, and then I was looking for a master program. And there is something that caught my eye. I found this master program that was saying in the description, the program bridged the fields of organization theory, leadership, project management, social innovation, and social entrepreneurship, so that new ways of organizing and leading sustainability can be created. And I was like, wow, that sounds nice, right? Why to settle for project management if I can also have leadership, organizational theory, and way more skills? Also, sustainability. It sounds good, right? It sounds right. Something that, why not? Well, that was awakening, we call it. Of course, I learned about project management and leadership, but I learned much more than that. I learned about sustainability and many concepts that I was not aware of. I learned that business are not only about profit. If they want to be sustainable, they need to work between the boundaries of the planet, and also they should take into consideration the impact they have on the people, the workers, but also the communities where they operate. I was also thinking like, circular economy. I am not an economist. Why should I learn about this? Well, it's not only for economists, it's for everyone. Circular economy, it has a lot of work regarding how we design, how we operate projects. We need to think a lot about what we do to reuse, recycle, trying to not lead to everything ending up in waste. I mean, if we can use it, repair it, why not to do it? But it also comes from the design of everything. Things need to be designed in order to be repaired. Well, and of course, I mean, as one professor at the university told me, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, it's a blessing. It's a way that you can frame sustainability in your projects. It's a way you can define KPIs and track them. It's a common framework. So that was a blessing for them. Apparently, 20 years ago, it was very difficult to be sustainable because there was no common ground. But now there is, and we should use it. But then I'm an engineer, problem solver by default. So I was thinking, okay, I want to help. What can I do? What can I do to help? So I came across this challenge while I was still studying, as how to make the Baltic Sea a healthier sea. And my first thought is like, is the Baltic Sea not a healthy sea? Well, it is not. It's one of the more polluted seas in the planet. So I started to deep further into this problem. Watch this documentary, Chasing Coral, is very good. I recommend it. And also started to look at, this is really a big problem. This is like, I mean, there is a lot of pollution, a lot of toxins ending up in the water. It's not only plastic, as there's also a bit of hype around that. It's like, it's a big problem. So, well, I decided to create a startup to help. There are many reasons I decided to create a startup instead of joining an NGO or other activities. And well, one of the reasons is because the first layer of a sustainable endeavor is to be economically sustainable. Then, of course, the first thing I did in the startup was research. You are very familiar with that, right? So, okay, there is a problem. The waters are polluted. There are toxins there. Why? I mean, they should come from somewhere. Isn't this managed? The governments, for sure, should be checking what's happening in the water. I mean, it will be nuts if they are not checking, right? I mean, it's common sense. So I started to research on the topic. And yes, of course, I mean, governments, they take a look at the quality of the waters and to ensure that there are no pollutants. But the method most of them are using is pretty outdated, I have to say. They were doing manual samples, where someone had to go to the water body, take a sample, bring it to a lab. Maybe after a couple of days, you get the result. Yeah, you can do that very often. I mean, you can do that once every month, maybe a couple of times per year. But then what happens in between, right? You are missing a lot of information. With the technologies we have today, it seems very, very outdated. So, well, I mean, at Cryogenics, I remember we still do at TSS, at CERN, we use industrial controllers, PLCs, and SCADA systems with dedicated sensors to measure in real time, all the time, what's happening into the cryogenic processes. I mean, for sure, it should be possible to do that the same for water, right? Just take some microcontrollers, some water sensors, and then have publish that into a SCADA system, and then have real-time information on what's happening on the water instead of a sample. If there are no water sensors, we should invent them. I mean, it's just one-to-one. I mean, it was a direct connection for me at the time. I'm also not a physicist. I mentioned I'm an engineer. But I saw that there was something called environmental physics. Maybe it's similar enough to particle physics for someone of you that have dedicated expertise on the field. And then, I mean, I can kind of create the line into environmental science and something else. So that's what we started doing. We started to develop this concept that putting some sensors in the water, and then near some interesting areas like water purification plants, factories, and just publish the data to a cloud platform. Then in the cloud platform, we can visualize what's happening. Can be in the phone, can be into a SCADA system. We can even send this SMS, right? That we said, oh, something is going very wrong. It happened at CERN when someone was on call. And then it can be done here. Probably not with the same technologies, but the Internet of Things is very powerful nowadays. So why not to do it? There are, of course, many challenges, right, regarding that. The environment is not a controlled environment. It's a very turbulent one. There are many challenges on the way. But then we in the startup are starting to providing some concepts. We're starting to develop some prototypes, and we have some pilot projects to provide data to several interesting stakeholders. Not only in environmental monitoring, but we are also doing some hydroponics, even if the environmental one is the aim of the startup. We want to help. We want to prevent these toxins to end up in the water. We are at the beginning of the journey, I have to say. Founded the company only 2 years ago. And I have to say that anyone of the team is working full-time in the company. But with the aim of help and some also help from people here and there, this is becoming a reality, and we are happy to provide this data to the parties. As I mentioned, we need a lot of help. I cannot do this alone. I have a team of 5 people, missing 2 in the picture, unfortunately. And also we had a lot of help from funding organization, networks, challenges. I mean, if you are pursuing an entrepreneurship career, you want to create something from yourself, don't do it yourself. Find people to help you along the way. And also, even competitions, these very simple idea competitions, it helps a lot to create a business model. It helps a lot to perfect your pitch deck, small things like that. This was the direction I took, also in the clean waters aspect. But there are a lot of challenges in the global ecosystem. I can list a few of them, like overconsumption is one. I mean, we also mentioned about during this talk and during this event, CO2 emission and energy consumption. There are many directions where you can help people. There are many directions where you can help the planet. If you don't know where to start, you can start looking at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and you can see where there are all these challenges. There are many ways to apply. Even in the clean water sector, what we do is monitoring, but hey, you can maybe have a company that cleans. Why not? Also, I need to mention that this is not only about new companies and the environment. Sustainability can be applied everywhere. I recently presented a couple of slides to our colleagues at Max4 Laboratory about how to build more sustainable beamlines, right? I mean, for example, niobium, this is a rare material. Where is it sourced? Some mines. Yeah, maybe, probably Africa, South America, maybe. Do we really know? Do we know the conditions of the workers there? Are we ensuring that these materials are ethically sourced? We should, definitely. What about nuclear power plant that is being decommissioned? The radiation shielding blocks, are they going to be used somewhere else? If we are building some accelerator, can we take those blocks and reuse them? Probably they are not irradiated. Many aspects. When we design an experiment, when we design an accelerator, for example, cryomodules, do we really need a full clean room in order to repair one sensor? Maybe it could have been designed so the sensor could be accessible from the outside without dismounting the sensitive parts. It's all about designing for sustainability. It's all about applying all these concepts to our daily activities. I wanted to be pretty generalistic in this concept because I have been in this position where I didn't know what to do after CERN. For example, what to do with my life. After I was in the position to think about career development, after I wanted to do something good for the environment. So I hope my presentation has given you some insights into what can be done and what directions could you take in case you're interested into these fields of sustainability. And not to mention Vaquita Technologies. It takes its name by the vaquita, which is this little friend or cousin from the dolphin, and it's on the brink of extinction because unsustainable fishing practices. So let's save what we can. Let's save the vaquita, and please, I think I have some time left, but I know I'm already ready to take questions if you want.
Much, Emilio. That was a fascinating talk and such a journey from Spain to Switzerland to Sweden and from cryogenics to clean water. In fact, so I had one easy question to start with, but I think you've already answered it because hablo un poquito el español. I speak a little bit, and I thought vaquita was what children say for little cow. But if I understand correctly, you said vaquita, the name has come from the animal that you showed on your screen in the inspiration for the young animals young mammals in clean water. Is that correct?
Exactly, that's correct. I mean, yeah, it's pretty funny because it has this double sense, like the little cow or this porpoise, which is not very common known that they exist. And that's also what we wanted to promote with the name. We wanted to let people remember that there are all these mammals and all these animals that are on the brink of extinction, and people don't even know about them. And also by adopting the name, we wanted everyone to know that we want to keep sustainability in the core values. It's very easy for a startup with no big funding to get lead to some profit organizations that, let's say, animal or industrial farming, right? For only industrial farming, they just also need to measure some parameters, but we want to be seen as a company with values, as a company that has sustainability in its core.
Thank you for your answer. So we have our first question from the audience here in the virtual globe. Obviously, your background is very much in technology, controls, cryogenics, ESS is very similar scientific communities to CERN. But then when you had this inspiration to move into sustainability, who was your first contact in the area of sustainability once you realized you wanted to work there?
The first thing I did in that regards, it came from education. It came from these masters that I took, where there were all these concepts. Of course, during almost my entire life, I had this love of nature, about going out hiking or snowboarding or even diving. So that resonated with me pretty well. When they started to talk about using technology for the good of the planet, it resonated with me. I wanted to do something good for that. And I had to say that was also one of the reasons I was involved in this scientific community and even at the European Exploration Source, because the outcome is very positive. Still, I wanted to do more. And then, as I mentioned, maybe NGO is a good direction for many people. But also talking with all these, or my colleagues at the university, let's say it that way, they share that NGOs struggle very often about funding, and even some small NGOs have to close because they are not allowed, let's say, to take profit for their activities all over donations. And us, with the startup framework, we are able to get some support from the government, which is very useful, and also in the long term also get some external support from investors, because it's not only about helping the planet, it's mostly about helping the planet, but it's also about improving the situation, in this case in technology, and many stakeholders can profit even economically from that.
Thank you. So CERN is a huge organization when you're here. You know, we mentioned 18,000 people. ESS is a very large organization. How did it feel? What was your experience as a startup of less than 5 people?
Yes, that's a very big change of pace. I have to say, I still combine my work at TSS with the startup work, and it's very interesting. Like in a big organization, you always have people to rely with. You have many colleagues who are experts on their field, and you can ask them for support. While in the startup community, you are kind of by yourself, or you and your small team. That's why I also mentioned that networking is very important. We are part of 3, 4, maybe 5 even network organizations, just because you can reach out to others. Even if you are in your small bubble of 4 or 5 people, you can still reach out. And then the community brings everything. The community, even if they are working in other startup or even just at the university or at the business incubator even, you can ask them, and the community makes everything. So that's why I wanted to mention also about CERN, that the community is the most valuable part I feel about all my work.
Thank you. I can sense that feeling of community in your replies and passion about the subject. Another question from the audience: what do you think is the most important thing to focus on as a company or a community in when being green and sustainable?
You need to be aware that the business model, it needs to sustain by itself. So we always try to frame all our activities in the way that it needs to be properly designed. It's good you want to help the planet. It's good that you want to make money out of it. Yes, I mean, the first rule of a company is to be economically sustainable. but then you need to properly have a framework where you have design. It's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of administration. We are, as engineers and scientists, we are not so eager to deep into those topics. But to have a proper framework, a proper strategy to how to grow, how to expand, how to properly get revenue, how to properly help the planet, that's very important. What you have to identify what are your benefits, what are your weaknesses, and also what you bring to the planet, and also what you are taking from it. For example, we at Vaquita Technologies, we want to help the water to not get polluted, but at the same time, we know that we are creating something new that it wasn't there. So we are creating a product. We are using resources, and also so we need to be very aware of what are you doing in a company from many angles. So I agree. I mean, from an engineering or scientist perspective, it's a it's a bit of a headache, but it's very important to have a also I want to mention it's very important to have a team with you that have very different disciplines. We couldn't have done with our business colleague who brings all these business-oriented perspectives into the team and to the strategy. So a team with all the skills, that's the first thing to do, and then also to frame your business model and to frame your strategy. That's boring, but it is very much needed.
Thank you, Emilio. We have a few minutes left, probably at least one time for one last question. A Spanish colleague of yours writing in the audience says once the Baltic Sea project has been completed by Vaquita, what are your next challenges? Perhaps he refers to or Manor, and also that would be connected with my question. Well, what next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I will be delightful to help on that area. I mean, Mar Menor, it's in a bad shape. The thing is, we are at the moment, because we are still in the prototyping stage. We have, I mentioned, a couple of pilot projects. We are focusing ourselves in the south of Sweden, so we are able to quickly react ourselves to in case something goes wrong, and also to keep troubleshooting the project. The thing is, we identify as the water pollution is a global problem, so we aim as a startup to grow and to tackle different parts of the world SAP. But of course, things take time.
Emilio, thank you very much for there's now more in the chat, more thanks than questions for a fascinating talk. One of the things I took away is really that, we talk a lot about privacy by design in the area of data privacy, but what I really understood from your saying is big projects, they have to have sustainability by design, not as a tag on at the end, but really from the conception of the project. So you've certainly inspired me. You've inspired the people in the audience here. And I'd like to thank you very much for being with us today. And on behalf of everybody in the virtual globe, wish you all the very best of success with what's a fascinating, exciting, something you're passionate about, but also a very, very key and an important project. And congratulations to you on this voyage. All the best.
Thank you, James.